guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kim and this is Expedition Through Pages. Today I'm going to be wrapping up both TBR Trail for the month of October and also You Readathon, which happened in October as well, and let you know how I did, what I thought of the books, and if there were any that I didn't finish. So I think I'm going to start with TBR Trail and then move on to You Readathon. So I'll timestamp everything down below if there's any books that you're particularly interested in hearing about or anything like that. If you don't know what TBR Trail is, it's my monthly TBR game that I play, and I will link the playlist down in the description if you wanted to go and check it out and see what it's about if you've never seen it before. I really enjoy it, and actually in December it's going to be my last TBR Trail of this round. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of finishing the game and finding out what's going to happen. But anyway, more about that in December rather than now. Okay, so in October, my first prompt that I got off TBR Trail was to read a STEM book, which is science, technology, engineering or mathematics, and it had to be under 250 pages. Now, the book I read for this was Fairest by Marissa Meyer, and you might be thinking, how the hell is that STEM? But it is actually science fiction, so I have allowed myself this year to count science fiction under STEM, even though I think maybe going forward I'm not going to allow myself to do that in 2022. But yeah, for this year, I've wanted to read fantasy and science fiction, so I've allowed myself that little luxury. So I'm pleased to say that for Fairest, I ended up giving it 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book. It's number 3.5 in the Lunar Chronicles series. I couldn't think of the word then. It's kind of a short novella that slips in between 2 of the main novels, but it's still 222 pages, so it's still fairly big. I actually listened to the audiobook version of this, and it was narrated by a person called Rebecca Solar, yes, and excellent. It was excellent. So Fairest follows Queen Lavanna, who is the bad guy in the Lunar Chronicles. She is, because the Lunar Chronicles is a YA sci-fi, but it is also loosely based on various different fairy tales, and Queen Lavanna's role is the wicked stepmother in Snow White. Is she the wicked stepmother of the... Yeah, I think she's the queen actually. The wicked queen in Snow White. And this is Queen Lavanna's story. This is the background to how she became who she is in the Lunar Chronicles. It's also about the history of events that happen in the Lunar Chronicles up to book 3. I will say you definitely have to read books 1 to 3 before you read this novella because it gives stuff away. So you meet Queen Lavanna when she is not a queen, she's a princess, and she's living on Luna, the moon, which is the land that her parents run. You meet her sister and you hear all about the family life, and I have to say in this book, extremely toxic relationships, both with family, both with other people, toxic relationships for sure. Like, it's heavy on the wrongness of what happens in this book. This book is definitely about control, it's about power, it's about extreme ambition and fighting for what you want. It's also about family dynamics and about relationships between siblings, relationships that you have with other people, like romantic relationships. It's about manipulating people within those relationships. It's about abusing people within those relationships. It's also about seeing Lavanna grow from being this young girl in this very strange environment to a woman that she wants to be, and her taking control of her own life and deciding what is best for her. And yeah, she makes some dodgy decisions along the way, definitely. And in this book, you have to watch her justify those decisions to herself. And I have to say, that's one of the things I absolutely loved about it. I think the story was really good as well. Like, it was interesting throughout, and I was intrigued throughout the story. But one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about this book was just being inside Lavanna's head and watching these terrible decisions be made and hearing her justify them to herself and having that tiny bit of understanding of her, and then feeling like, whoa, why am I understanding this? This is so wrong. And yeah, I thought it was a really, really good book. Like I said, the audiobook was excellent, the actress was excellent, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. 5 stars. Prompt number 2 for TBR Trail, I got read a fiction book, and it had to be a book that has a word in the title from one of my favourite songs, and the word that I chose was world. And the book that I decided to go for this is Beautiful World, Where Are You? by Sally Rooney. So this book follows 4 adults. You're mainly following 2 women, 2 young women, one called Alice, who is a novelist. So they're both from Ireland, but Alice is a novelist, that very quite successful novelist, and she's just been living in New York, but she's had a bit of a hard time, so she's come back to Ireland and she's moved out to the countryside and is living in this big house on her own. And then the other person that you're following is her best friend called Eileen, who is living in the city in Dublin, and she works for a publishing house, not publishing house, that's a lie. She works for a literary magazine. It's quite a low position, I think, in the literary magazine, and she's not really got anywhere to go from that. And then the other 2 main characters that you follow are Simon and Felix, who are involved with the 2 girls. This book definitely focuses on the modern world and modern relationships and just modern events that are going on. So you see the relationships between Eileen, Alice, Felix and Simon, how they all kind of relate to one another. So it's definitely about modern day friendships and relationships, and it's a bit about family relationships as well. You basically have the chapters of what's going on, so you take it in turns. You're either following Eileen or you're following Alice, and then in between those chapters you're reading emails being sent from Alice to Eileen, because they're not in the same place, they're separated. So they write emails to each other about climate change, about really bad things happening in the world, about kind of language lost and writings lost, which all of these things are really interesting, but then they kind of felt out of place in these emails and a bit forced to me. I didn't believe that these 2 girls were writing these emails to each other. They felt a bit pretentious and just kind of trying to force these big issues into a story where it didn't necessarily belong. That's kind of how I felt. I felt like you read about too many different things, but maybe that was the point of the book now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe you're supposed to feel like it's too many things. Anyway, I don't know. But then the main chapters of the book, where you're learning about their lives, was written in a very unique writing style, I guess. It's definitely a writing style I've never read before. So, for instance, it would be Alice got up from the chair and went over to the table. She picked up her phone and opened up a social media app. On the social media app, she clicked on Felix's profile page. And it was kind of like that the whole way through, and it was really weird to get used to. And I don't think I ever properly got used to it, but it did get easier to read. But it was definitely made it difficult to get into. I found this book a really weird book to read because I was kind of annoyed by the emails. I was definitely way more irritated at the beginning of the book than at the end of the book. It did grow on me. I was irritated about the writing style. But then there was this something that was pulling me to read it the whole time. I was super intrigued and I did want to know what was going on. So yeah, definitely interesting conversations, and our book club was good. We had a good book club because it did spark up so many different conversations, especially because it was interesting because it was such a modern day book. I don't know if they want me to talk about them on here, but I'll just briefly say, because it was a modern day book, half of the book club are older and half of the book club are younger. And there was a bit of a divide on how we all responded to the relationships, and especially the sexual relationships that happened in the book. Anyway, I gave it 3 stars, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, book number 3 for TBR Trail appeared to me on a blue scroll, and that was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Why can't I speak? It was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Yeah, Margaret. I was thinking her name was Marguerite, but I think, yeah, Margaret. That does say Margaret, right? Sometimes I can't read very well. So this book is a YA fantasy, and it's a standalone, so not in a series, just this one book, and I was a bit worried about that, I won't lie, because I did wonder how you could fit a full-blown fantasy story just in here with regards to world building and stuff like that. But actually, I really enjoyed this one. I thought this was a lot of fun. In this book, you're following Elizabeth, who lives and works in one of the great libraries of her land. She actually grew up in this library because she was left outside the door when she was a baby, and they took her in and ended up just leaving her there. And so she grew up around everybody working in the library. When she was 13, she became an apprentice to work there long term for the rest of her life, and her absolute ambition in life is to become a warden. Becoming a warden means that you get to look after the most dangerous books in the library. The reason that there are dangerous books in this library is because it's not a normal library, it's a library for magical books, for grimoires. All the books I think are pretty dangerous. I think every book in this library is chained up on the shelf, but there are different levels of danger to these books. So the more dangerous a grimoire, the more locked up it has to be. So some are actually buried in these dungeons underground in cells and everything like that. And when you're a warden, it's your job to look after these most dangerous books, and you have to transport these books from library to library or take them where they need to be and everything like that. And that is Elizabeth's goal. She really wants to be a warden. If these grimoires escape from their captivity, they can turn into these really like grotesque, weird monster things. So they grow limbs, they drip ink, and basically go on a rampage where they want to try and kill loads of people. So right at the start of this book, one does escape and goes on one of these rampages, and Elizabeth ends up getting involved in capturing the grimoire, and that incident doesn't particularly end well for her, and the book goes on from there. And yeah, I thought it was really fun. I really liked it. This was actually the first book that I picked up in October, and it's so funny because at the beginning or before October I was like, I'm not going to read any scary books for Halloween or anything like that. But as soon as I picked this up, I was like, okay, this has proper creepy vibes. Like, it wasn't scary, which is good because I don't like scary books, but it was definitely creepy and it definitely had spooky vibes. So there was a couple of graveyard scenes, and it's definitely supernatural. So it's not just these grimoires that can turn into monsters, there's other supernatural beings as well, and I really liked that. It was a nice atmospheric book to read. I really liked the side characters in this as well. They're not really side characters, they're with Elizabeth a lot of the time, but yeah, I really enjoyed them. Like I said before, I was really worried about the world building and stuff, but I think this book did a really good job at sticking to the storyline. So there wasn't huge amounts of like description or world building, but you learnt about the world through seeing, like you saw what was going on, and that's how you learn about the world. It was really good. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and if you like YA fantasy but you're not in the mood to pick up a big long series, then I would highly recommend picking up Sorcery of Thorns. I think I gave this 5 stars as well. Did I? 5 or 4 stars, I can't remember. So yeah, all was going well so far, but now's where it falls apart because the next thing I had to read was from a black scroll from TBR Trail, and that was Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark, and I think I read 10 pages of this book and I really enjoyed it. Like, I know that I'm gonna love this book, but I just think you guys, like, I'm not in the mood for popular science books at the moment, and I just have to accept it, and hopefully next year I can get back on it. So yeah, I didn't read this one, which means I failed TBR Trail, and that means that I'm on a book buying ban in November. I've been on a book buying ban now, I think this is my 3rd month in a row. Yeah, September, October, and November. Yeah, 3rd month in a row. I'm determined to not be on a book buying ban in December. My final prompt for TBR Trail was free choice, and that had to be read a book that I can easily get hold of from the first BookTube video that I watched. And the book that I ended up picking for that was All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. And this one I also didn't finish, but I did read half of it, which was pretty good. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about it here, but I'm halfway through, and hopefully at some point in November I'll be able to pick it back up again, or at least in December maybe, because I was enjoying it. I wasn't loving it, but I was really enjoying it, and I am intrigued as to what's going to happen. Okay, so that was TBR Trail for October. So now let's go on to the Boo to You Readathon. So Boo to You Readathon is a Halloween readathon that's run by Bookish Princess and Princess Lessons. And I really love the idea. I thought it was really good. So links below to those 2 channels and to the announcement videos in case you were interested in doing it next year, because I think they do it every year. And I think now I definitely will try and take part every year because it was super fun. So just the basic premise of the Boo to You Readathon was that you had 5 different tickets, and on each ticket were a list of different rides for Disneyland in America, and you had to pick one ride from each ticket and read a book that matched that ride. So that's the basic premise. I really liked it. I thought it was really fun. So for ticket A, I chose the ride Cinderella's Golden Carousel. And for that, I read Cress by Marissa Meyer. This is book 3 in the Lunar Chronicles. And the reason I picked this for Cinderella's Carousel is because one of the characters is Cinderella. Her name is Cinder. This is the book you read before Fairest, which I spoke about earlier. And like I said, it's the third in the series, so I can't really say much about it. So the first book is Cinder, and this whole series is a YA science fiction story based on different fairy tales. So Cinder is a Cinderella retelling, the next one was Scarlet, which was Little Red Riding Hood, and then Cress was a Rapunzel retelling. But yeah, like I said, it's a YA science fiction, and you follow Cinder in this book, who is a cyborg mechanic living in New Beijing. And there are two big things, I would say, going on in this whole series. And the first big thing is that there is a pandemic on, which I was not happy about when I first read it, but now I've gotten used to it. But there's this disease going around where if you catch it, you basically die instantly. So if you show any symptoms at all, you are locked up and put into isolation, and that's it. You're like a goner, basically. The other big part of this book is that it's set many, many years into our future, and the world has reached a point where a lot of countries have kind of morphed together and are being run by big government bodies. And there is actually a new, I wouldn't say new species, there's actually an evolved community of humans living on the moon called Luna. Well, they're called Lunas, but the moon is called Luna. And these people have actually evolved to be more powerful than the humans living down on the Earth. So they're able to manipulate humans and they're able to control humans. And that's the other big part of it. And it's really interesting what's happening with this whole storyline. So going back to Cress without actually saying anything about Cress, the only things I will say is that I really enjoyed it overall, and I liked seeing characters from previous books meet new characters and stuff like that. It was very interesting. I think the one negative thing that I had about this book was that some stuff that happened was ludicrous. Like, it was too and I know it's a YA sci-fi, like, you have to kind of just suspend your disbelief, or whatever the saying is, a little bit. But yeah, there was a few things where I was like, can I let this go? And then you have to just let it go. You can't think too logically about it. Like, it just is what it is. And if things didn't happen, the plot probably wouldn't move forward very fast. So yeah, anyway, overall I did really enjoy it. And when I finished this one, I immediately wanted to pick up Winter. Of course, then I actually picked up Fairest, that I spoke about earlier. And I have to say, when I finished Cress, I despised Lavana. Like, I hated Lavana to the point where I didn't want to pick up Fairest. I didn't want to have any empathy for her. I didn't want to have any sympathy for her. I was like, no, she is awful. I don't care about her. And from what I've said from reading Fairest, you can probably imagine that my feelings have changed a bit. So I definitely don't have the same level of rage anymore, which is a shame. If you've read these books, I wonder if you feel the same, because I know there are people that have read Fairest that still hate Lavana just as much. So yeah, I might be in a minority there, but yeah, if you've read it, let me know. Okay, so on to my B ticket. So for that, I chose The Swiss Family Island Treehouse, and the book that I matched to that was Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb. So this is book 1 of the Rainwild Chronicles, but it's book 10 of the Realm of the Elderlings overall series. So I don't want to say anything to you about this book. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. As I usually think Robin Hobb's books are great. So I'm not going to tell you anything about the plot line or anything of what's going on in this book, but what I will say is that I had heard before picking this book up that it felt a lot more YA than her other novels. So all her novels are adult, and I heard that this one feels very YA, and you follow a group of young kids, and it has a completely different vibe. And I would argue that that's not true. If you've read any of the Elderling books before this one, but not this, I would say that this has the same kind of vibe as the Live Ship Traders trilogy than the books that follow Fitz. I would say, yeah, it's more Live Ship Traders than anything else. And it also definitely does have adult themes in here. You follow adults as well as following children. You see from their perspectives. There's horrible relationships in it, very manipulative relationships. There's sexual abuse and stuff like that. So yeah, I wouldn't describe it as YA. I know you can have those themes in YA books as well, but for me, I still felt it read like an adult novel. It doesn't read YA to me. Because even in Live Ship Traders, you definitely follow kids as well. Not in the same way as this one, but you can still follow children and have an adult vibe to it, and I think that this does have an adult vibe to it, in my personal opinion. So yeah. Anyway, I really enjoyed this. It was so good, and I didn't finish this in October. I finished it today on the 13th of November, so it didn't count for the Booty You Readathon, but I did finish it, and I did start it because of the Booty You Readathon. So yeah, that's what I read for that prompt, even though it was late and doesn't really count. Then for Snow White's Adventures, I read Fairest, which I've already spoken about, and I did read that in time. And then for the D ticket, I went on the Skyway to Fantasyland, and I picked up for that Legendborn by Tracy Dion. So Legendborn, I actually ended up listening to the audiobook for this one as well, and it was narrated by Janice Abbott Pratt. I think you pronounce the name. I'm just looking at it now. And I thought they did a wonderful job of narrating it. It was really good. And the book itself was really good as well. I really liked it a lot. So in Legendborn, you follow Bree, who's a 16-year-old who's just about to go off to the University of North Carolina for a residential program there. So she's actually 16, like I said, so she's not actually doing a proper college course. She's doing this course for very smart high schoolers, and she's gone with her best friend Alice. Right before she's about to go, her mother sadly dies in an accident, and Bree is obviously very badly affected by this, even more so because just before her mother died, they had a big bust up as well. So you can imagine this is ridiculously hard, but Bree decides to go off to college anyway. And the first night that she's there, her and Alice attend this kind of illegal band party with other kids there, and Bree gets separated from her friends, and then she sees some really weird magic stuff going down, and she's like, what the hell is going on? Why can't I see this? And she ends up being introduced to this secret society called the Legendborns. So once she's been introduced, she really wants to kind of wheedle her way into the secret society because she believes that they hold information that she wants, and that's basically like the overall starting point of the rest of the book. But yeah, right off the bat, I was so intrigued about where this book was going, and I just really wanted to know what on earth was going on, especially with regards to this secret society and King Arthur and stuff like that. And I just remember at the beginning just turning the pages and just being like, tell me more, I want to know what's happening immediately. Then I had a bit of a lull period where a trope was introduced that I'm not a massive fan of. Kind of to do with competition-y type stuff. I don't really love reading that in books, but that was a bit of an aspect of it. But then yeah, from halfway point, other stuff kicked in and my intrigue was back, and I couldn't wait to finish the book. So what I think this book does so well is just kind of integrate so many different aspects of the story together, like flawlessly, basically. I think there's a lot covered in this book. A lot of big topics covered in this book. So first and foremost, you've got Bree's grief. That is a very heavy part of the book, and is talked about in depth, and you learn about her feelings and her coping strategies and everything like that. In addition to that, you've also got the fact that Bree is a young black woman in America, and the secret society that she has found is all white, predominantly white. And so she is having to deal with prejudices because of that. Obviously then you've got the whole magical side and actually what is going on and who these people are and what are these weird, like there's supernatural things happening, and there's just so much going on. And none of it felt too much, like none of it felt too unrealistic for me. I felt like I just believed everything, and that's one of the things that I really liked about it. And then I guess on top of all of that as well, you've also got the coming of age story of Bree. You've got her relationships with her friends, you've got really romantic relationships going on, you've got just the whole teenage experience as well. But yeah, I thought it was a really good book, and I can't wait to pick up the second one and find out what happens next. So I'm glad that there is a second one for me to wait for, although it's not coming out until July next year, I don't think. Most of the books in this video have been YA fantasy, so I'll just say it again, if you like YA fantasy, I recommend this one. It's really good. So that's what I read for my D ticket. And for my E ticket, which was the final one, I wanted to choose 2000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I wanted to read All the Stars and Teeth for that. But I didn't finish that book. So instead for that ticket, I'm going to pick It's a Small World instead. and I read Beautiful World, Where Are You? So It's a Small World, Beautiful World kind of goes, right? Yeah, so I'm going to count that for that prompt. So although technically by this point in time I've read 5 books for the 5 prompts, technically I only finished 3 within the month of October, but I finished Dragon Keeper today, and Legendborn I finished at the start of November. So yeah, I kind of failed that too, but there's no surprises to me there because I'm a slow reader, but I think I read quite a lot in October, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with it. So yeah, the only other books that I read in October, I finished in October Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, which I spoke about in my September wrap-up, which I'll link down below if you want to hear my thoughts on that, but I absolutely love that book. I think that book was my favourite book I finished in October. Yeah, I was going to say maybe Fairest, but no. Born a Crime trumps Fairest, but Fairest was a close second. Very, very different book, but close second. The other book that I finished, I think I finished this on October, was Why We Love Pirates by Rebecca Simon. But I read this for the X Bookclub, and Hannah and myself, Hannah from Hannah's blog, we will be discussing this in our live show at the start of December. So I'm not going to talk about it now because I think I've talked myself out and I'm just about to film another video. So yeah, my voice is going to start going soon. So I'm going to head off. But yeah, that's the end of the video. So thank you so much for watching. I'm annoyed I'm on a book buying ban again for this month, but it's almost over, and hopefully in December, finally I'll be able to buy some books. Hopefully. All right. I hope that everybody is doing well. I'd really love to know what your favourite book in October was, so if you'd like to tell me, then please do just leave a comment down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.